What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Phil Perry. We've got a tremendous episode lined up for you this week because we have our friend J.P. Finlay from NBC4 in Washington. Nobody better at covering the Commanders, and so he's going to give us a little bit of the Jayden Daniels blueprint and talk with us about how the Patriots can apply that to their own situation. What do they need to do to set up Drake Maye for success the way that Washington set up its rookie quarterback to be one of the most electric players in the NFL, essentially as soon as he set foot on an NFL field. But before we get to that, we have to talk about some current events as they relate to the New England Patriots, and more talk about Drake Maye, of course, because everything is going to revolve around that position, what the Patriots are doing moving forward there. And we have to start with the injury to David Andrews. Shoulder injury, going to require surgery. He's going to be out for the season. Does that impact the Drake Maye timeline moving forward? What the Patriots will tell you is no. What I will tell you is it should. And the reason I say that is because he is so critical, Andrews is, to everything that happens at the line of scrimmage before the ball is even snapped, that now with him out, there's a level of chaos there that would make me uncomfortable if I was asking Drake Maye to play behind that unit as currently constructed. David Andrews in this West Coast system, we've talked about it before here on the podcast. Alex Van Pelt asks a lot of his centers. All that stuff in terms of the pre-snap check at the line of scrimmage, identifying the mic, setting the protection, etc., etc. That sort of stuff is on the center. And so as Jacoby Brissett put it the other day, talking about Andrews and the impact of his loss for the remainder of the season, Brissett said, he's kind of running the show out there, Andrews is. I'm just a co-host. And so now, with the host of the show now missing, that is going to even have somebody like me, who argued as recently as Monday. We're recording this on Thursday afternoon. As recently as Monday on The Breakdown with Ted Johnson, I argued right off the top of the show, I think it's time to start playing Drake Maye. Because the Patriots are in a spot where they are arguably the worst offense in football. You don't have many solutions on the bench aside from what you have at quarterback sitting there on the bench. There's no first-round pick at left tackle that you can bring right in to help settle things down. There's no first-round pick at receiver that you can bring right in to help give the offense a little bit more explosive talent. There is a number 3 overall pick who's just sitting there for an offense that needs as much help as it can get. And so it would be one thing if the Patriots were not even average, but just slightly below average relative to the rest of the league offensively. Then you could argue, yeah, keep them out. Save them from everything that's happening on the field right now. But when they are last in the league, I wonder if Patriots decision makers don't owe it to the locker room, maybe even the fans, to do everything they can to improve the situation, push every button, pull every lever. The most obvious one might be the easiest one, which is Drake Maye. That's an easy button. Get him out there. See if his athleticism can help their overall offensive production. See if he can, with his, I would say, gunslinger mindset, especially relative to Jacoby Brissett, I think he is a little bit more aggressive, let's just say, with the football. I think those things could actually help this offense. Might it be a little bit more volatile in terms of the number of turnovers you might see? Yes. But you also might see a little bit more explosive playmaking. You might see a little bit more success on third down because of the quarterback's ability to run. So I argued very recently that he should be playing. But now with Andrews out, again, the level of chaos, a little too high even for me to feel comfortable with that. We've heard the plan referenced over and over and over again by the Patriots, whether it's Alex Van Pelt or Drake Maye, that they have a plan in place and that they're sticking to it with Drake Maye. What is the plan? I can tell you what I've learned over the course of the last week or so about the plan is, number one, they are planning to have him play this year. Even with the Andrews injury, even with the level of chaos on the offensive line right now. He is going to play. This isn't necessarily going to be a Green Bay Packers situation with Rodgers or Love, or even you could look at the Patrick Mahomes situation in Kansas City, where he played one game essentially that year. That's not going to be the blueprint that the Patriots try to follow. Drake Maye is going to play. They want to know as much as they can about him before going into year 2 of his rookie contract. So it's not if he'll play, it's when. And my belief is there's a stretch of time on the regular season schedule that they have targeted to run him out there. Now, when is that coming? My guess is it's in the relatively near future. I don't think we're talking about weeks 15, 16, 17 here. I think we're talking in the next month or so, month or thereabouts. Because to me, that's enough time for him to get settled, to understand how to put a game plan together, to understand what it takes to prepare for an opposing NFL defense. All these experiences are experiences that he's building up right now in real time. And we know, as we told you on the podcast last week, he's practicing well. He's performing with the reps that he's been given in practice. Would the Patriots coaching staff say right now, if they were in this room with me, that Drake Maye is ready to go, plain and simple? I don't think they would. But he's close. He's ready enough that he's the backup quarterback. He's ready enough that he was outperforming the guy who's the starter by the end of training camp. So Drake Maye's debut is on the horizon. What I believe needs to happen is the offensive line, he needs a little bit more time, but the offensive line also needs to just settle down. Settle down. Don't be allowing pressures on 50% of Jacoby Brissett's dropbacks. Don't, as it was pointed out to me, have reps like the one that Jacoby Brissett had in San Francisco last week were on a 3-step drop. This was one play that the coaching staff pointed out to me. Go back and look at that Jalen Polk 21-yard catch. Along the sideline, back shoulder throw, Jacoby Brissett is taking a massive shot when the football leaves his hands. Go back and watch that one. What I was told is, that play's a 3-step drop. It should be damn near impossible for a quarterback to get croaked the way that Jacoby Brissett was croaked on that particular play. Probably his best throw of the year, by the way, because it's under the chin. It's a difficult throw as it is. Back shoulder along the sideline. The placement has to be well done, and it was. Again, throw of the year for Jacoby Brissett. Maybe you say that's not saying much based on what we've seen through the first 4 weeks from the Patriots offense this year. But that one play is an encapsulation of where this offensive line is at right now. They can't feel comfortable putting Drake Maye out there in a situation where he's going to be facing those kinds of hits, even when the ball is out of his hands quickly. On 3-step drops, quick game plays, those should be able to protect the quarterback, and they're not. That's how bad the offensive line is right now. So settle down. Figure things out with Nick Leverett or whoever's playing center in place of David Andrews, and just get enough reps out there with 5 guys that you can have some sort of representative effort on a week-to-week basis. This is not going to be a good group this year, period. But can it be better than what we've seen? It has to be. And if it's not, then that window of games that I was talking about in the regular season schedule, where the Patriots probably have targeted for Drake Maye to play, if the line doesn't get better, then you're probably looking at the back end of that window, where you still feel like you're getting enough reps for Drake Maye to understand what he is or have a really good idea of where he's going, what his trajectory is by the time you're going into year 2. But you're also limiting the number of hits, the volume of punishment that he might take over the course of his rookie year. They know he can take a hit. I think that was one of the benefits to watching Drake Maye go against the Jets for that one series, 16 plays in New Jersey a couple of weeks ago. They saw that he could take a hit. They saw that he could bounce back up. That's a good thing. It doesn't mean you want to subject him to as many hits as possible over the course of his first year. I can also tell you that the coaching staff is, it's my understanding, on the same page as it relates to Drake Maye's timeline. Now, I know there have been a number of places where I've been able to look at Jerod Mayo's comments on Drake Maye, and he's outplaying Jacoby Brissett, and he's practicing really well, and he's lobbing verbal bouquets Drake Maye's way over the course of the last 2 months. And look at it and say, well, it sounds like Jerod Mayo wants Drake Maye to play. And it seems like there are other forces at play that are keeping Drake Maye on the sidelines. But Jerod Mayo is the one who's making the call here. Drake Maye is not on the field because Jerod Mayo doesn't want him on the field yet. And when Drake Maye is on the field, it will ultimately be Jerod Mayo's call. The Crafts have empowered him to make that decision. And yes, is he getting input from others, like Alex Van Pelt especially? Yes. Is Ben McAdoo likely involved? That would be my guess. T.C. McCartney, the quarterback's coach? Sure. But the decision is going to come down to Drake Maye and what he decides. He is leaning on Alex Van Pelt, though, and they are, again, aligned. And I do want to address one other thing because I was asked about it on BST on Wednesday night. Mike Felger wondering, what's the deal with Van Pelt? Has the team even really invested in him? Are they entrusting this guy to lead the way with Drake Maye's development, and he might be a one-and-done kind of assistant coach here in New England? Well, I'm not going to guarantee, personally, not going to guarantee that Alex Van Pelt is here for 2025 or beyond. If they're the worst offense in football by the time we get to December and January, anything's in play. But I do know this. He is under contract beyond this year, and he is being paid by the Patriots. I think that's sort of been lost in the sauce a bit, especially over the last couple of years when the Patriots have brought people in like Matt Patricia, not given them titles that are commensurate with the jobs they've been asked to do. And just sticking with the Patricia example, he was brought here. He eventually became offensive coordinator. He was not given that title. He was still collecting a check from Detroit at that point. If the Patriots made him offensive coordinator, by rule, they had to give him a market value contract associated with that job. So that means $1 million plus, whatever that number is, and it's up even beyond that, is my guess, in today's NFL for offensive coordinator. And they didn't have to pay him that because he was whatever he was, assistant to the head coach, something absurd. I think he was actually offensive line coach in title in 2022. So they had to pay him like an offensive line coach, even though he was doing the work of an offensive coordinator, and then pulling in whatever offset money he was owed by the Detroit Lions. Okay? Yes, while Alex Van Pelt was fired by the Browns and still had term on his contract, the fact that he has been named offensive coordinator here means the Patriots have to pay him an offensive coordinator salary here. And so that's the case for this year and at least next year. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know the exact length of Alex Van Pelt's deal because I don't. But I do know he is under contract beyond 2024. And that to me is significant. That's important to know because they have truly invested in this person. And so the fact that he has input with Drake Maye's development and the plan for Drake Maye's development, to me matters. And if it goes well enough, is that enough to bring him back for next year, even if the offense as a whole isn't performing all that well? For example, if the last month of the season, Drake Maye actually looks pretty damn good, and yet the Patriots are still somewhere in the bottom third or worse of the league in some important offensive statistical categories, what do they do? That to me is a fascinating question. That's something that we'll have to keep our eyes on moving forward. But there's a long way to go before the Patriots have to make any kind of decision as far as Van Pelt and his future is concerned. Last thing before we get to our conversation with JP, because I've talked to a number of players about this, want to share what I've heard with you. In terms of frustration with the scheme, and I would get it if you're frustrated because you have to watch this, or you feel like you do probably as a fan, every single week. Frustration with the scheme. That's something we have experience with here in New England. Players looking at their playbook, looking at their plan on a week-to-week basis and saying, oh my God, we have no shot. Just a couple of years ago. Again, Matt Patricia, Joe Judge running things. I can tell you that group didn't feel great about what they had that year as far as planning is concerned. This year, it's not the case. And I thought it might be, to be quite honest, especially given where the Patriots rank in a number of different important categories offensively. It wouldn't have surprised me if receivers, linemen, quarterbacks looked at what they were getting from Alex Van Pelt and said, I don't know about this. But that's not the case. I have received, in response to questions that I've been asking, no indications of frustration with the scheme, with Alex Van Pelt from players. What I do hear from players is it's still early. We still have a lot of guys that are new to this system. that are still trying to figure things out along the offensive line. They have new faces every week. They're about to have their 5th different starting offensive line combination in as many games. And that has made things difficult in terms of finding their footing with this scheme and finding any sort of momentum offensively, period. I've also asked if there's not more that Alex Van Pelt can do to squeeze every last drop of productivity out of this group as he can. And what I've been told is they really have been limited by their offensive line. So things like motion at the snap, where they are last in the league, 32 out of 32, in terms of their motion at the snap usage rate. They're at 8%. League average is 26%. So they're less than a third of the league average in terms of sending people in motion at the snap. This is viewed as a cheat code by a lot of teams, and some of the best offensive minds in football are near the top of the list in the NFL in terms of use of motion at the snap. Mike McDaniel. I know it looks not so good right now in Miami, but he's viewed pretty widely as a very competent offensive coach. One of the best in football until Tua Tagovailoa has dealt with his most recent concussion. Matt LaFleur, Green Bay. These guys are right at the top of the league in terms of use of motion at the snap, whereas the Patriots are near the bottom. And it shouldn't come as much of a surprise. Kevin Stefanski, Alex Van Pelt's last boss, Mike McCarthy, another one of Alex Van Pelt's former bosses, all at the bottom of the league in terms of their use of motion at the snap. Van Pelt was actually asked about why he doesn't love motion at the snap in a press conference on Thursday, and then I followed up with a question about whether or not the offensive line and its issues has maybe limited Van Pelt even more than he normally would like to be limited in terms of his use of motion at the snap. Here's what he had to say.
We motion with a purpose. If there's a reason to motion, in and out of bunches, moving the tight end from side to side, depending on how the defense responds to what we do with the motions dictates how much we motion.
Can you be limited in terms of how much you might like to use it based on, for example, if you're dealing with moving pieces on the offensive line, would that impact how much you'd be willing to use motion at the snap?
It does, it changes the picture often. So when you do motion right before the snap, the picture for the offensive line can change, so yes.
So I understand what Alex Van Pelt is saying there. I still wonder if there's not a little bit more they can do. Motion at the snap, I believe, it can help hold edge rushers. Okay, is this person who's, say it's Tyquan Thornton. He runs a 4-2. He's done basically nothing for this Patriots offense this year. Could you at least threaten an opposing defense by handing it to him, trying to get him a little bit of momentum going across the line of scrimmage, and just being a threat in that regard? Because that might delay a defensive end, hand it to him or not, just a half second, maybe even less than that. But that might give Jacoby Brissett the time he needs to find an open receiver, because that guy's going across the line of scrimmage and the edge defender has to wonder, should I tackle this guy or should I get up the field, beat the tackle in front of me and try to tackle Jacoby Brissett? I think it could help in that regard. I think it could help in terms of giving the Patriots a numbers advantage on one side of the line of scrimmage or the other. That's how the Niners use their motion at the snap. I think it could help generate leverage for an offense that's having a hard time getting open. Get some of your faster, more athletic players. Pop Douglas, Tyquan Thornton. Maybe it's even Jalen Polk, who doesn't really fit that category, but maybe it would help in terms of creating some separation near the line of scrimmage quickly enough to give Jacoby Brissett a target to throw to. I want to use some very quick sound from our friend Daniel Jeremiah, who's been on the podcast before. Does a great job with the Move the Sticks podcast, also with Bucky Brooks, who's been on the pod as well. Phenomenal job every single week by those two on their podcast. They had Luke Kuechly, former Panthers linebacker, on to talk about this very topic, motion at the snap. And I want to play it for you all because I think he does a great job of detailing the benefits of motion at the snap. And it might make you wonder why the Patriots don't try to use it just a little bit more. 32 out of 32 teams in terms of their use of motion at the snap. Here's Kuechly on why it gives defenses problems.
Well, you think about, all right, so say it's 2x2 and the slot receiver motions to 3x1. There is no stress on anybody in the second level of the defense for him to get out front side. He's motioning across, make it 2x2 to 3x1. And you're like, he's just going to move over there. Nickel comes over, Mike and Will switch. You can figure out rotation. But now it's like, hey, we're playing the San Francisco 49ers and they line up in 2x2 and Deebo Samuel is running Mach 5 across the formation. I don't know if he's getting the ball. I don't know if he's running a pass route, I have to get, hey, is this zoom motion? Because if it's zoom, I have to bump. It's just the more speed that happens pre-snap on the offensive side of the ball, the more stress it puts on a defense. And it makes playing the run game really hard because you can't get downhill. All your movement as a backer is lateral. It's just stress on the defense is caused by pre-snap motion and the speed at which they do it.
So whether it's motion at the snap or quick game, quick throws, the Patriots are 23rd in the league in terms of the number of throws that they have attempted in 2.5 seconds or less. That's near the bottom of the league. They're in the middle of the pack in terms of their use of screens. To me, with a bad offensive line, I know it takes coordination. I know it takes a synchronized effort to execute a well-designed screen. But it also gets the ball out of Jacoby Brissett's hands quickly. It's a completable attempt to running backs who can be effective as receivers. We know that, whether it's Antonio Gibson or Ramondre Stevenson. Can you up your usage of screens? Can you get the ball out of Jacoby Brissett's hands a little bit more quickly? That, to me, might make this offense just a tad more watchable. So where do they go from here? What the Patriots would tell you, what the coaching staff is telling its players, is this is the second quarter. They're in the second quarter of the 2024 season. It's still early if you're looking at it from a game point of view. And quite frankly, big picture, they are where a lot of us thought they would be after 4 weeks. They're 1-3. They ran into a buzzsaw on a Thursday night where they clearly weren't ready, and they lost to a Super Bowl contending team where they were, I'm not going to say it was a competitive game, but they were within 10 points relatively late in that game. Now comes a stretch of winnable games, and the next game on the schedule is the most winnable of their winnable games. So there's pressure on them. There's pressure on them to win this game, to do what they should do at home in front of what should be an antsy Gillette Stadium crowd. And if they don't show some level of progress against this limited Dolphins group, then we're hitting panic buttons. All right. Speaking of a team that knows its way around a panic button, let's talk some Commanders football. And let's talk to JP Finlay because they're doing anything but panicking. They are partying in the streets right now of Washington, D.C. because of what Jayden Daniels has been able to bring to that offense and bring to that city, bring to that franchise. What's the blueprint, though? How have the Commanders helped him blossom the way he's blossomed so quickly in his rookie season? And can the Patriots do the same thing? Here's JP. There he is, our friend, JP Finlay from NBC4 in Washington. Nobody better when it comes to covering all things Commanders football. And the reason we have to have you on now, JP, is because Jayden Daniels is lighting the world aflame. First, let me just ask you, how different has it felt to watch a team that has not only hope, but real productive, effective, efficient X's and O's happening on the field in real time?
It's bizarre. Dude, it's been so long without an obvious stud quarterback here. And we've, at various moments, the fan base kind of talked itself into Taylor Heineke or Carson Wentz, Dwayne Haskins, Alex Smith before he hurt his leg, Alex Smith after he hurt his leg. It's even when Kirk Cousins was playing well, there was the constant drama of him fighting with the front office about his contract. When Robert played well as a rookie, there was always kind of melodrama following that. It's been a really long time since we've seen something like this where it definitely looks sustainable. Even when Robert has had his success as a rookie, it was kind of gimmicky. Like they introduced the read option to the NFL and the league wasn't ready for it. And then eventually the league kind of caught up to it. Jayden's just winning from the pocket. And then he's able to run on top of that. His accuracy is fairly unparalleled, at least through 4 games. It's excellent to watch. And what has been really cool with Jayden is every week he's improved. He's shown something different, but like off field. And I have a million friends asking me, hey, what do you think about this rookie? And really, since we got to know him a decent amount by like the late July, early August, after you're around him all the time, the guy is so genuine and just cares about ball. Like all the other stuff is just noise. He doesn't care about social media and all the trappings that some of these dudes get caught up in. He's just cares about football above all else. And it's pretty special right now, man.
It's ridiculous to watch from afar, quite frankly. The multiple games without punts, the efficiency that he's been able to exhibit from the pocket, the downfield accuracy, the throw to McLaurin a couple weeks ago where he's getting hit in the teeth and making a game sealing kind of play. I mean, he clearly is a special player. My question to you is, because from afar, right? The reason we're having you on is, listen, Patriots have a rookie quarterback too. And there are a lot of Patriots fans, I think, who are watching Washington from afar and saying, why can't that be us? What do we need in order to ensure that our team has a similar experience whenever our guy gets on the field? So my question to you is, in terms of the support system around Jayden Daniels, we know, again, he's been great in his own right. But the biggest reason that he's had the success that he's had in terms of what's around him is what?
How bizarre is this that the Boston guy is asking the Washington guy that they wish they had their quarterback situation? So I think the biggest reason for his success is him. Like, he's at the top of the list. And then I think it's a fairly sizable gap. But then you do have to give credit to a lot of factors. They built a staff ready to develop a young quarterback. And I do think Jayden came in after playing 5 years at LSU, and then Brian Kelly, who, as far as college offenses go, there's some pro style elements. And, I think he grew a lot that last year in Baton Rouge with Kelly, who really challenged him and told him what he needed to do to get to the next level. And he responded to that. But on this staff, you've got Cliff Kingsbury, obviously, who maybe he's not a head coach, but that dude absolutely knows how to develop quarterbacks. And you look at his track record from Mahomes to Baker to Kyler, it's pretty darn impressive. Beyond Cliff, Tavita Pritchard is the quarterback's coach. He was Andrew Luck's backup at Stanford. A lot of people really like Tavita. David Blau is a guy that had bounced around the league as, kind of a journeyman backup quarterback. He's on this staff now as assistant quarterbacks coach or some other inflated title, but they have just put so many quarterbacks together. Brian Johnson, who was with Jalen Hurts, was at Bama, was at Ole Miss. I'm sorry, Mississippi State when Dak was there. Brian Johnson's a guy this time last year before everything went sideways in Philly. People are like, oh, he's the next head coach. He really could develop passers. He's on this staff as a passing game coordinator. Even their tight ends coach is a guy named David Rye, who was a quarterback at University of Iowa. And he's not that hands-on, but they have so many quarterbacks. You bring in Marcus Mariota, who's a veteran that won a Heisman Trophy, was a second overall pick. Like, there's no step that Jayden has walked through that Mariota didn't. And I think that was a very intentional hire there. And I think organizationally, they've done a really good job of not trying to present Jayden as like a savior and not try to market the hell out of him. Like, his face isn't on a million billboards in town. I'm sure that's coming, but it hasn't happened yet. And I think I give Dan Quinn a lot of credit for not making him captain or naming him the starter back in April when they drafted him. They kind of let him ease into everything. So I think they have done a lot of the right things. I think Kingsbury's offense has been really friendly. I think the O-line has surpassed expectations. That's one thing you guys certainly don't have right now, is an offensive line that can protect a young guy. But Jayden deserves the bulk of the credit, and then they have built an insulated place for him to grow.
Let's stick with the staff just very quickly, because I am curious about the system that he's running and Cliff Kingsbury's offense, because he was, as much as he has a reputation as being a quarterback developer, he also has a reputation for having a relatively, I want to use the word stale, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I've been studying his NFL offenses over the course of time, JP, but I think there are people out there who do look at those types of things and say that I don't know if it's sustainable. Is it too easy to defend? Is it only going to be something that can work for a short period of time? But what has he done specifically schematically that's allowed Daniels to thrive, do you think?
One thing I think people sleep on with Cliff is he's a physical. He wants to run the ball, and they've run the ball really well. And Brian Robinson's been a huge part of that. Getting Austin Eckler has been a big part of that. I think Cliff was instrumental in getting Zach Ertz, who has been like a total safety blanket for Jayden. Ertz isn't killing it in the yak department anymore, but he's sure-handed and he runs really clean routes. And there's been a lot of third down conversions that Ertz has gotten open for Jayden. Specific to the scheme, dude, that's the knock coming out of Arizona, right? Is they start hot, defenses adjust, and then there's no counter punch. We don't know that answer. Like right now, there's the hot portion of this. So if they then cool off, that's when we'll kind of see what happens there. But I think schematically, it was super horizontal early on. It was almost everything was at the line of scrimmage. But over the last 2 weeks, that has vanished. They've really started to go downfield. I think some of that is just Jayden getting more comfortable. I also wonder, I don't know, but they have used more motion than the Arizona days. One thing Cliff has told us repeatedly was when he got the job with the Cardinals, he was coming straight from college and had no other experiences, right? Whereas now he was with the Cardinals for 4 years, was at SC for a year. He's seen so much more that he has evolved a lot as a play caller. He and Jayden really seem in sync right now. There is still a fair amount of, sub 5 ADOT stuff, but McLaurin is starting to get involved. He wasn't involved really the first 2 games. Now, all of a sudden, he's caught touchdowns going downfield in the last 2 games. This kid, Noah Brown, they got from the Texans. It was kind of a surprise release from Houston. He's starting to help them. They've got a rookie wideout, Luke McCaffrey, that's kind of slowly emerging. So I think the verticality stuff is coming. And I think the leaning on Jayden's legs has diminished already. Week 1, he had 16 carries. Last week, it was 8. And a lot of those were scrambles. So I think offensively it's working. Will it continue to work at this level? They've got a hell of a matchup this weekend against Cleveland and Myles Garrett. Like all of a sudden they're jumping up a weight class in the defenses they're facing. So it'll be a good opportunity to see what's real.
So it's interesting. I think from a Patriots fan's perspective, okay, what have they done to allow Jayden Daniels to thrive the way he has? Maybe get him comfortable first with some of those horizontal throws, run the ball a little bit. Again, try to get your young quarterback comfortable, and then slowly but surely start to integrate some more down the field stuff where you're putting more on his shoulders. And it's clear to me, Washington is a better receiving core than the Patriots. You just look at Terry McLaurin and, you can sort of start and end there. To me, he's a true number one, which the Patriots certainly don't have at this point. So it's obvious where the Patriots need to improve as far as that goes. But I am curious, before we let you go, JP, 1 to 10, how would you rank or how would you score the Commanders' offensive line going into this year? And were there any key additions there? How did they put that thing together? Because it's looking more and more like, man, the Patriots have some real work to do in terms of overhauling what they have up front before they can sniff contention.
Yeah, dude, I remember just from that preseason game they had, I was blown away. And in the preseason, the 3rd game, maybe some guys aren't playing, but still the lack of depth, the Pats O-line was shockingly bad, I thought, in a preseason game. The Commanders, I'll give them credit, though. They identified center had been a real problem here for a number of years. Last year, they signed this dude, Nick Gates, from the Giants, who was not the answer. He was flat out bad the first 5-6 weeks. They had to eat some money just to cut him. They ended up benching him by like week 6 or week 7. They immediately addressed that. They signed Tyler Biadasz from the Cowboys. Everybody calls him badass. He's a super durable, tough guy center, can call all the protections. I think they understood, all right, we got a rookie quarterback. We immediately have to address center, right? So they did that so far really good with Biadasz. Sam Cosby's a guy they had drafted 4 years ago, 2nd rounder. They tried him at tackle, eventually moved him inside to guard. He's been really good. He could be like a Pro Bowl cusp type of player. They just got a contract deal done with him. He got an extension on top of the rookie deal. So he's a long-term part of this. Right tackle was a guy, Andrew Wiley. Last year was not good. This year he's been okay. Signed him from the Chiefs. Left tackle's been interesting. They've been rotating a little bit between Cornelius Lucas, who's kind of a veteran swing tackle, and Brandon Coleman, who was a guy they drafted in the 3rd round that Adam Peters was really confident in, and they viewed him as a tackle all day. There was some question if he was a tackle or a guard. Coleman has really good feet. Just real good nastiness that you want out of your left tackle. I think he's the left tackle of the future. Left guard is this dude, Nick Allegretti, who's really funny, really good bite. Kind of a dice roll there. He was kind of the 6th lineman in Kansas City, started all over the place, but never really had his own job. It's worked well so far here. Another thing here, dude, last year was so broken because Bieniemy's offense never ran the ball. You had no play action, and then Sam Howell held onto the ball way too long. So just having a functioning offense and then a quarterback that can move makes your O-line look a lot better too.
It's really interesting to hear you describe it because it's not loaded with sure things, right? Like if again 1 to 10, if 10 was what Jalen Hurts, for instance, stepped into in Philly, with right, like rock solid tackles, like Hall of Fame center, like unbelievable situation for a young player. And the Patriots, for example, let's use this year as an example. If they're a 1 on that scale and the Eagles are 10, like it sounds like the Commanders might be a 6 or 7. Like, is that fair?
I think a 6.5 or a 7. I think of the sure things there, I think you could count on Biadasz and Cosme, right? And that's assuming no injuries, but like who you could count on. Biadasz and Cosme, and then I think they really liked Coleman. Lucas could count as a sure thing, but as a swing tackle, like a third option. Wiley's been much better. They're also they're not asking to drop back and cover 55 times. So it's a total different setup. But yeah, I think so far the dice rolls have come up, the right number.
Well, listen, so we put it all together, right? Get a scheme that can allow the quarterback to get comfortable and sort of ease him in. That to me sounds like it's been really important for Jayden Daniels. Get a number 1 wide receiver who he can count on. That to me is something the Patriots definitely need to do. And then the offensive line doesn't need to be incredible. And I know Daniels is a different caliber athlete than Drake Maye, but Maye is athletic enough where he shouldn't need necessarily all pros across the board on the offensive line to have success. The thing that's really going to kill Patriots fans, if they don't know this already, JP, Brandon Coleman, guy you just mentioned playing tackle for the Commanders, went 1 pick ahead of Patriots' 3rd round pick, Caden Wallace, who has done next to nothing for the Patriots so far this year and is already banged up. He's been used as like a jumbo tight end, and that's been it. And now he might be out for a while. So that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I'm not saying Coleman is headed to the Pro Bowl yet. We haven't seen a ton, but he's able to help. And there's reason to really like the pick. One other thing, and I saw you tweet this, the fact that Ramondre Stevenson might be getting benched because of fumbles and Antonio Gibson is the answer, who was largely ran out of Washington because of fumbles, is just time is a flat circle, dude. When I saw that,
little ironic, huh? I do remember that when the Patriots signed Gibson, it was, that was one of the questions was what's the ball security going to be like once he gets here? And Stevenson has been the real issue. I mean, he's got twice as many fumbles as the next guy on the running back list so far in the NFL, 4 in 4 weeks. So it's been a massive issue. And Gibson, to his credit, he's looked pretty good. He's had a couple of big plays, both as a receiver and a runner. So if we get some more work this week, that could help them. And maybe moving forward, to have 2 backs that can complement each other, that would help somebody like Drake Maye. But the other things that we talk about, whether it's coaching, receiver help, offensive line, that obviously is going to be critical when they're trying to figure out what this blueprint is for Drake Maye. But JP Finlay, thank you so much for describing what has been going on down there in DC. Again, we've been watching from afar and saying, boy,
it's been fun, man.
I mean, imagine if the Patriots didn't beat the Broncos on Christmas Eve. Chad Ryland, who's not even on the team anymore, kicks a last-second field goal to win that game. They beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. I mean, there's a lot of what-ifs. A lot of what-ifs right now in New England.
The Commanders beat New England in New England and then still had the tiebreaker.
Right. I know.
Bizarre. Yeah.
I know.
For once, a little bit of good luck in Washington. We'll see how long it lasts.
It feels like the Patriots are on the other end of that spectrum right now. JP Finlay, thanks so much for being with us. You're the best.
Thanks, dude.
All right, great stuff there from JP Finlay. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Next Pats podcast. Enjoy. Try to, at least. Try to? Can I ask you that? Try to enjoy. Patriots, Dolphins. We'll be right back here next week with another great guest to talk some Patriots football. And as always, we will be looking ahead on the horizon. We'll be 1 week closer to Drake Maye starting when we talk to you next time. We'll see you then.